have lived through some of the most seminal moments in American history, and you were also reporting on it. You worked for 50 years in this business. What do you think was the biggest change that you saw in your time in journalism as the first African-American woman working at the Washington Post?
I think the biggest change was after the urban uprisings of the 60s, when the Kerner Commission, which was a commission that was named by the president, said the media had in many ways contributed to the fact that the urban riots occurred. And that was because they had not integrated their reporting and the editing staffs. And in many ways, they said they were just showing us America only through white eyes. So I started at the Post in 1961. When I went back in 1972, it was a little different because there were more reporters of color,
right,
more females, but still it was very white male dominated.
You came into this world at a time when it was just something that did not happen. You walked into a newsroom where there were only 2 other reporters who were black. You were the first African-American woman in this space. And reading in the book, there's one of just the most harrowing passages where they had a policy of not reporting when black people were murdered. One editor even called those cheap deaths that shouldn't be reported.
Yeah.
How do you even begin to work in that kind of environment? And did you help the editors understand why it was crucial to report all news?
I tried to help them. And I think the way I began working in that environment is because Dr. Martin Luther King was beginning to say to young black people, go into white corporations and excel. So I felt like I was almost part of the freedom movement by going and becoming the first African-American woman at the Washington Post. I didn't think I was a trailblazer at that point. I just was doing a job that I loved.
Right.
I had 4 years in the black press, and the black press has been very important in America. Both in terms of reporting on civil rights, but in going places where white reporters wouldn't go,
right,
where white newspapers wouldn't go. So that experience also helped to prepare me for my work at the Washington Post.
I'm honestly fascinated to know, in that time when this was happening, were you optimistic? Did you think that you would see America change? Or was the resistance to integration so strong that you thought it would last forever?
The integration was so strong that I never thought I would see a black president.
Wow.
That was a huge step forward, right, in many ways. But of course, with America, it can be liberal and then it can swing to conservatism, and you see what we have now.
I see what we have now. I do indeed. Congratulations on creating and working with a group of people on a project that has gone on to become more than just a moment, but rather a rethinking of America's history. Let's start with the why behind this. I mean, history seems like it has been written. So why try and write it again?
Well, history has been written, but it's been written to tell us a certain story. And the 1619 Project is trying to reframe that story. And it's really about the ongoing legacy of slavery. We've been taught that slavery was a long time ago. Get over it, which is something nearly every black person in this country hears at some point. And the 1619 Project is really saying that slavery was so foundational to America and its institutions that we are still suffering from that legacy now, and it's exploring the many ways that we still are.
That was an idea that I don't think I had fully thought about before I read this magazine, was the concept that America's foundation was a lie, in that it was a group of promises that weren't fulfilled, you know, to both people of color and to women in many respects. And what you argue in this magazine is that black people basically had the job of making it a truth. What did you mean by that?
Absolutely. So when Thomas Jefferson writes those famous English words, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. He owns 130 human beings at that time, including some of his own family members. And he understands that 1/5 of the population will enjoy none of those rights and liberties. So we are founded on a hypocrisy, on a paradox. But black people read those words and said, oh, we're going to believe that these words are true and apply to us, and fight. Again and again, we see them fighting at the Revolution Revolution, the first person to die for this country was a black man named Crispus Attucks, who wasn't free. We see that happening with the abolitionist movement, largely led by black Americans. We see that happening at the Civil War with the Reconstruction Amendments. And of course, the Civil Rights Movement, which brings the franchise to large segments of America for the first time.
Right.
So we said we were founded as a democratic republic, but most Americans could not vote at the time of the Constitution. But thanks largely to black resistance and freedom struggles, we are as close to a multiracial democracy as we've ever been.
I have like the utmost respect for you. You're a mogul at an age when I was just trying to figure out how to get money to buy candy bars in school. No, you genuinely are. You're kicking ass right now. First of all, congratulations. 2 NAACP Image Awards this weekend. When you're winning awards for Best Actress at this age, do you ever wonder, like if you're just done? Like, what do you do at 20?
Well, I mean, I'm still beyond grateful. I'm really excited. So
Right.
I feel like each one I get is like a surprise still. So hopefully at 20, I'm still winning them, you know? So we'll see.
You have an energy about you that most people describe as like they go, you're still a young person, but you're really mature. You are homeschooled, but you are well adjusted. You are a child star, but you are normal. How?
Well, I think that's just great parenting from my parents. Like,
Right.
shout out to Carol and Josh, my mom and dad. I think they always like keep me grounded, and you know, they're also my coworkers, so I work with them in my new production company. So, but like wherever we are, it's still like, calm down, girl. Like, you gotta do your homework later on. Like, you know.
You're an actress who's really successful in Blackish, and you are also one of the youngest moguls we've ever seen in Hollywood. You have a huge deal to produce films, and you've executive produced this film, Little. Where do you want to go from here? Because most people, they want to get to where you are now, and then you are here now already. So where do you go? No, I'm serious. Where do you go from here? Like, I mean, you could literally be anything in the world. Like, people say that to kids all the time, but it's not true.
Well,
No, like people say that, you can be anything you can't. Half of them can't. You genuinely can. Like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do?
well, a long time ago, I said I wanted to be a legend, like when I was like very young. But
Right.
I still want to, and I think I'm getting there. But I feel like, but I think it's just taking it one step at a time. I want to just keep on creating things that I love, and that is coming from a mind of not just like a kid, but someone that hasn't had that same representation when I was younger.
Right.
So just to make sure everyone feels comfortable when they see themselves on TV, and you know, just to relate to things that people would like to see too. So just to keep on moving forward with that.
Right. It is interesting that you say that. I feel like we live in a time now when younger people are not just consuming, but becoming creators. You know, I don't know if it's social media, I don't know if it's the access to technology that maybe previous generations didn't have, but you're in a position where you can create the world that you want to see. Whereas, you know, when many generations were younger, they were like, that's the world.
Yeah.
So do you see that as an obligation, an opportunity to put faces out there that remind you of yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I have so many friends that are doing amazing things also. So I want to give them a platform just to speak their mind in whatever they want to do too. And just to put out new talents that, you know, don't think their voices have been heard in the past. So just to give them the opportunity to say in whatever they want and speak their mind.
I honestly have met few people who have lived as much of a life as you have.
You mean I'm old?
No, as some people are old, but they haven't lived life.
Okay, all right.
They really haven't, because reading through your story truly fascinated me. I mean, you know, you were at the forefront of opposing the war in Vietnam. You know, you were one of the key individuals who fought for the American government to impose sanctions on the apartheid government in South Africa. You've been fighting for equality in America for a long time. You've been on the front lines, and you are a friend of Dr. King's family. If you look at MLK Day today, and you look at how people have warped his message and his image, etc., what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about Dr. King?
The biggest misconception is that Martin Luther King was a dreamer who had a dream. Every time I go someplace, people get up and say, yes, he was a dreamer. He was always dreaming. Well, that's because of the speech and the part that's taken out. Martin Luther King believed in the right to vote. The first speech he gave in Washington at the prayer pilgrimage in 1957, his coming out, as it were, in Washington, was about if we ever got the vote, everything would change. We'd have justice if we just got the vote. That was even after, a year before, they had done the boycott, the Montgomery boycott. But over the years, as he evolved, he saw, hey, the vote is important and we should get it, and he continued to fight for it. But voting by itself isn't going to give us justice. And he concluded that protest is an essential ingredient of politics. You see, politicians want two things. They want you to vote for them, and they want to get elected, and they want you to vote for them so they can get reelected.
Right.
Those are the two things they want. But the thing you have to want is to make them do what will give you justice and equality in this country, and they won't do that unless you make them do it.
That's
and
really
that's where
interesting.
protest is involved.
I loved how in the book you talked about small and meaningful protests that you try and implement in your life. For instance, you talk about how you are done code switching.
Correct.
You say what you love is you go, I'm not just going to be black, I'm going to try and be the blackiest black that I can be.
That's a way to say it,
Right.
yes.
And that's a really interesting idea. Why do you think it's so important to do that? Do you think code switching reinforces the stereotypes that people have about black people? So they go, oh, you sound more white, ergo, whiteness is associated with smartness.
Right.
And then you go like, no, I'm going to be as black as you think a black person can be while still maintaining that level of intelligence. Is that
Listen,
part of
code
it?
switching is a marvelous cultural tradition, and I love it. I love that I'm able to do it.
Right.
I also love that I'm able to choose not to do it. What I am doing when I do it is that I am acknowledging the fact that I have achieved certain status symbols that we tend to associate with people who don't look like me.
Right.
And I want to make people uncomfortable with the fact that they are uncomfortable with me. Reconcile the fact that if you think I am anything worthwhile, intelligent or attractive or important, I want them to reconcile that with the fact that I sound like I sound, I look like what I look like, and
Right.
that I am what I am.
And congratulations at making your way into Congress. That is exciting.
It's been a long journey.
It has been a long journey, and it has been a fruitful journey as well. People love throwing the firsts at you. Do you ever get tired of having to be the first of everything? People go first refugee, first Somali woman, first woman of color to represent Minnesota. It's just like first.
Sometimes people just add extra firsts that are not real.
First woman
becomes
named
a thing.
Ilhan to be in Congress. Yes.
Right.
But you are a trailblazer. I mean, just the hijab alone is something that fundamentally changed what Congress was. There was a ban on the hijab for, I think it was over 100 years, apparently.
187 years.
And that changed because of you.
Yeah.
Was there like backlash? Does anyone like look at you and go, does anyone say anything about it? Or was everyone like, yeah, this makes sense?
I mean, it's interesting because there was a ban on hats and headwear. And what people didn't realize is that it made it unconstitutional to apply it to me because we are supposed to have religious liberty in this country.
Right.
And so it would have applied a religious test. And so lifting it is just upholding our Constitution. And people are like, oh, they did her a favor, and all of these people are changing things for her. And it's like, no, we're just following the Constitution.
A lot of people are excited for you. Many of your fans are excited because all of your day ones have been with you on this journey. You know, you create music in a really specific way. You've even described your music as church with a twerk. What does that mean?
Hallelujah, Trevor. I don't know. I feel like my music is really positive and uplifting, and I've played enough shows now to ask people how they feel, and they always say it's a religious experience or a spiritual experience. I grew up in church in Kojic, Church of God in Christ in Detroit, and so that was my connection with music, with spirituality and gospel. So I like to bring that into, you know, the Lizzo world, and also I be twerking, so why would I stop now? I've been twerking since I was 14.
You have this style. You have a style that's really unique because of all of your influences. Like, you grew up playing the flute.
Yes.
Right? And what I really enjoy about your story is you talk about how, like, there was a point when you were ashamed that you played the flute.
Well, there was a very small window when I was like trying to be a rapper to hip hop in the back of the cap, in the back of the bedazzled fedora looking like a, you know what I mean?
Right.
When I was like a rapper, like B-Rabbit, people were like, don't bring the flute into that. It's embarrassing. Like,
Yes.
you know, no one's gonna take you seriously.
You can't be a rapper with a flute.
No, it was like, I was terrified. You know, I'm a band nerd underneath this cool exterior. I'm a geek. I know all my scales, major, minor, pentatonic, harmonic.
So you've got the rap, and a lot of people who are fans of yours remember you for the rap, and you started rapping, and then you brought in the flutes, and then you started singing.
Hey.
And singing
out of nowhere,
yeah. But you
where
have
does
a
come
gorgeous
from?
voice.
Really? You think so? Wow, thanks.
You do have a gorgeous voice, though.
Well, I learned how to sing. I started singing when I was 19, and I was a bad singer.
Are you serious?
Yeah, cut to the clip of me sounding like shit.
Oh, you can say shit.
Shit! Shit! Wow, that feels good, baby.
Yeah, but now you can sing, you can rap, you can dance, you can actually this is one of my favorite moments that I saw of yours. It was a viral video that came out of nowhere and it blew people away. We actually have that clip right here.
I'm a dumbass. What's that terrible thing?
You see that's magic. No one expects that.
Wow.
Do you enjoy playing with people's expectations?
Well, you know what happened that day? This woman, she was like, we were playing like a homecoming at a college.
Yes.
And this professor, this very nice white lady at first, she came out and we were sound checking. And you know, my team is mostly brown women. And we were sound checking and she walks up to the stage. This is huge built stage in the middle of the college campus that says homecoming. I have a microphone on. And she's like, do you have a permit? Do you have a permit to be playing music this loud out here? There are students trying to study. And I was like, bitch, don't talk to me. I was paid to be here. I'm not here for you. That was the first thing that came out of my mouth, and I just kind of ignored her after that, and she tried to raise hell, but during the actual show, I dedicated that song to her, and something came over me. I wasn't supposed to be so angry, but I was.
I'm not blowing smoke up your ass at all. I truly have watched few films that engaged me in the way this movie does. It's a powerful story. Like, I often say, like, the trailer doesn't do it justice, because in the trailer, it just seems like a story where there's a couple that is out on a date, and then they get stopped by a cop. The stop goes very wrong, and the guy, as we saw, Daniel Kaluuya's character, shoots the cop, and then they're on the run. But it's a complex story. How did you even begin to write a story like this? Why would you choose to do that, especially considering how real the story is in today's world?
You know, it's so interesting. You know, Nina Simone says it is an artist's duty to reflect the times. And these are the times in which we're living. It is open season on black bodies. And what I wanted to do, you know, there's a study that says if you're ever being held up at gunpoint, you should tell them personal things about yourself. You should say, I have a child. You should say, my mother is, you know, on her deathbed and I want to see her go. All those things, because what happens is the gunman now empathizes with you and now sees you as a human. It makes it more difficult for them to kill you. So I think with my art, I'm wondering if I can humanize black people enough, maybe they'll stop killing us. The movie to me is a meditation on blackness. It's a love letter to black people, in that even in the midst of oppression, we find joy because we don't have a choice. You know, we live in a world where we still treat it like second-class citizens, even though we're walking on land that our ancestors helped build for free. And so that is also a very weird dichotomy. It's sort of like we should be treated like royalty in this country, but it's the opposite. And you know, and I think for me, the movie is something that everyone can come see because everyone should come experience what the world is like through our lens.
That was a big thing for you, and I think so many people who saw you being crowned Miss Universe it was a moment where many people, and this is what really interested me, I was proud as a South African. I was proud as somebody who's grown up on the continent, but what really got me is how universally, I mean, for our planet, many people said to see a dark-skinned woman win an accolade like this, but then to see a woman with natural hair win this with her natural hair is beautiful. And that's what a lot of people That's what a lot of people initially wanted you to change. People were like, why don't you get a weave? Why don't you straighten? You're beautiful, but why don't you just straighten your hair? That must have been a challenge. Why didn't you straighten your hair? Why didn't you wear a weave?
Yeah. Because this is my hair. This was the first question I gave people. Like, you know, because I don't think anyone tells other people to put on a weave, so why should I? You know, at first people were like, was this a strategy? I'm like, to what? To wake up and be myself? You know? And I was like, no, it's not a strategy. I've had, you know, short hair for 3 years. And I wasn't going to change because I was now stepping into a beauty platform.
Right.
Because then that means I don't think my hair is beautiful if I'm going to change it. And so I decided to keep it.
You kept it, and everyone is happy that you kept it. We're gonna love traveling with you on your upcoming journeys because, as we've seen, you have you're multi-talented. You know, music, acting, directing, doing everything is in your future. Shakespeare in the Park, though, is something I wouldn't have expected.
Really?
Because you had movie offers.
Oh, yeah.
And then you were like, no, I'm gonna go do a free production in the park.
No.
Why?
For nothing, Jesus.
Why?
Because I didn't know if this opportunity would ever come again in my career.
Right.
To play Beatrice, to play the lead. And the movie was a great movie, but I wasn't the lead. It was a rom-com, but now I get to be in another rom-com.
Right.
Speaking Shakespeare, showing people that I'm trained, I've done this, I know what I'm doing with this language.
Yes.
And to also give opportunity to women that look like me, to young girls that look like me, to say, yes, you can be dark-skinned and thick, honey, size 16, and you can do this. You can be a Beatrice. And so that's why I took it, for no money.
People are loving your performance. People are raving about the production. It's in the park. It's a different world because, I mean, like, there's some days where it rains.
Oh my gosh.
What do you do when it rains?
We perform in the rain. And there's
You're
no
not covered?
covering. No, no covering for us, no covering from the audience. It's an 1,800 seat house. At least 1,000 people are still there to watch this show.
That is amazing.
It's crazy, and it actually fuels us, because like people are like so hyped, and like,
Right.
come to see us do this thing. I'm like, y'all don't want to go home, but they're so ready to hear this story,
Right.
and so you have to deliver everything you got. And there's bugs, there's raccoons. Yes, I mean it's a world of wonder out there. But it's been fun. I wouldn't have taken it back for the world. Wouldn't take it.
Shakespeare is one of the hardest plays to perform, though. I mean, like you said, it's the language, it's everybody knowing it so well. Was a little bit of that daunting at all?
No, it's just getting the opportunity, because you know you have it within you, right?
Right.
So to finally get to tell this story, to make this link, it's set in 2020.
Yes.
In a small town out of Atlanta, Georgia, around Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm from South Carolina. I just get to be me, unapologetically be who I am. If I'm saying, oh Lord, he will hang upon him like a disease, I'm gonna put it how I would. Lord, he would hang upon him like a disease.
That's amazing.
So we're making it very, you know, relatable.
It's Shakespeare, it's relatable, it's now, it's
yes,
you.
it's black.